Hello, everybody. We are live and we'll be joining you in just a second for Jealousy in Polyamory, Mondays with Tara André. Good morning.
Good morning, Tara.
I can see that you're loving the look today. We're dressed this way because
you made me dress this way. You
for
forced me into it.
funsies, for funsies. Okay, we can take them off. Well, it's Halloween tomorrow, so we thought we'd wear part of our costume.
In North America, but
In North America.
our friends in Europe, Asia, they're not so much into this. I don't know about South America. Let us hear, if you're in South America, what it's like. Or is it catching on in Europe and Asia and Austria?
Okay. Well, you can leave them on? You're going to take them
Australia.
Now you want to keep them on? You don't know? Well, welcome to Mondays with Tara and Andre. I'm Tara, and I'm a relationship and awesomeness coach.
And I'm Andre, and I am a sex-positive psychotherapist.
Awesome. So we're the co-founders of an online community, Let's Talk Polyamory. We talk about creating healthy, open, non-monogamous relationships, sort of on a weekly basis. We also have courses and programs to support people in navigating their journey. And every week we do a live training here in our group, and where we talk about all things polyamory and open relationships.
Yeah.
Like today.
Right.
So let's talk about it. Yeah, let's talk about it. So before we jump in, please let us know that you can hear us in the comments and give us a thumbs up or a fire. Also wanted to know what you feel your current level of jealousy is right now. So on a scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is like no jealousy at all to 10 being, super serious jealousy.
You say right now, but I think that's interesting because I think it can fluctuate over time and it can fluctuate over situations. Some people can make us feel very secure. And I don't know if we should say make you don't make me feel, but I might feel more secure with one person than I might feel with another. And what is that about? Right. So, and then, there are people who actually will go out of their way to try and make their partners feel jealous. For them, it's a demonstration of their investment.
Oh, that's a whole other thing. Yeah. And I think jealousy is something that we should manage on our own, not on our own, but it's something we should address within ourselves. But it's also, as partners, we can support each other in feeling less jealous.
Yeah. So. I think you're right. Yeah. I think we can definitely tune ourselves into how the other person's feeling and find out from them. Makes me think back to a situation I think we're going to talk about where we did have something go on. And looking back in hindsight, I was not considering your feelings so much. It wasn't on the radar. I thought you were able to advocate for yourself, which you do. But I thought that you were, your silence meant that you were okay. Whereas later on, I came to find out that you were very much not okay with it.
Yeah, so. And I don't think that you assumed anything. I think we actually did talk about it. But I felt that I was prepared for it. So I think it's unfair to say that you weren't aware of my feelings. I think we actually talked about it and I agreed to it. So
I wasn't aware to what extent you might have been feeling your feelings.
Well, and I wasn't aware that I was going to feel that extent of it. So I think it's funny. We were talking yesterday in the car and talking about when you introduce being open to other partners in your relationships. We don't always think about what we're inviting. We think about maybe inviting another person into the bedroom, but we don't always think about inviting things like jealousy or insecurity into the bedroom. I think we think about all the fun things that are going to happen and not necessarily that, this might trigger some feelings in me. And for some people, really strong feelings.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. The fantasy is that I'm going to bring in a new friend or I'm going to bring in some toys, whatever, and all this is going to play out. But do we really consider that we might also be bringing jealousy into it, or our partner might be bringing jealousy into it? And then does that become the extra in the room? And how do we
address that?
Yeah, how do we address that and right size it?
Yeah, I think when we first started, when I was monogamous, I would have considered myself semi-jealous, but I think for me, it stems, well, we're going to get into what can cause these things. But for me personally, I think a lot of it was to do with like how I viewed myself.
Yeah.
That's
a very
sense of self.
For sure. But that's an interesting point because I've spoken to many people and told them that I'm polyamorous or that I'm in open relating. And they might say, well, I could never do that. I'm far too jealous. And it's like, well, you're already jealous before going into polyamory. So you are jealous in monogamy. So it's nothing to do with the way that you relate. It's more to do with your own position of security, insecurity.
That's actually a good point.
Thank you.
Because that's true. Because people say like it might trigger jealousy.
Yeah, no, I'm far too jealous to be in that kind of relationship.
Yeah, or insecure.
But you're going to be jealous in a monogamous relationship, right? I've known lots of people. I remember hearing stories, and I'm sure it's not the first time you hear it, but of somebody being so jealous that they would cut up the clothing of their partner.
No.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They went into their closet. They were so in a rage and a fury that they cut up their clothing, the partner's clothing. Wow. And that is in fact an incredible demonstration, but it's not the most outlandish, because there are stories, unfortunately, of people who actually go so far as to murder people in this jealous rage.
Yeah, and not people who are necessarily polyamorous.
No,
these are just
polyamorous people aren't going to do that.
Yeah, in fact, I talked to someone last week who felt that it really triggered some super strong feelings within them that they hadn't felt in a really long time. So much so that they got into this like blind rage and thought that they had dealt with some things in their life and that they were past those things, but the fact of doing certain activities sort of triggered it again, those things.
Maybe it's the activities, maybe it's not so much the activities, maybe it is their own internal position, because the more I think about it, right, like when people do have this jealousy, this feeling, maybe the idea of you are my one and only, that mono position, that announcement that we will be together forever and ever, and that you will forsake all others, maybe that in fact sets up the model for jealousy, because then I think, well, you should look at no one else. You should have no other ideas or feelings for anyone else. And if you do, how would I ever tolerate that? Whereas in the invitation of open relating and polyamorous, I'm coming to you and I'm saying, I am open in nature. I like to relate to other people and I will have other interactions with them, sexual, social, intellectual, whatever it might be. So can you consent to that? Can you come in and feel comfortable with that? Maybe being in open relating polyamorous relationships actually invites less jealousy, as opposed to saying you're my only and no one else will ever look at you, no one else will ever touch you, you shouldn't look at them, and then I'll feel more secure. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. So when you know it's going to be there, it's something that you can deal with right away. Like, well, it's not unexpected. It's not the thing that you're worrying and future forecasting.
Yeah.
Although you can get into future forecasting with jealousy.
Yeah, and it's not to say that you will never feel any level of jealousy in polyamory. You might. It's not going to prevent you from feeling this, but it's the idea that we might be kind of open to that, and it's much more transparent in those aspects of it. Yeah?
But sometimes not feeling jealousy in monogamy may not mean that you're not going to be jealous in polyamory open relationships. I think that's what sometimes surprises people is that it does trigger feelings in them. And then for me, so we can say,
well, no, I think to your point, yeah, absolutely. Because, we were kind of not well defined yet in a relationship, maybe, or we were, but then when we went to an event and actually saw you interacting with somebody, I got hit with a surprisingly heavy amount of jealousy that I wasn't prepared for and didn't consider myself to be that jealous going forward. Or rather from the past. And it kind of alerted me to, wow, maybe I wasn't quite as well equipped as I thought I was, but then came to find out, well, I could move beyond that. It wasn't just going to be this totality of my expression, that I could come to experience it, understand it, and then move beyond that.
Well, the situation we were talking about in the middle. Oh, I forgot. So people are just joining us now. Make sure you drop in the chat that you can hear us. Hopefully we're talking to people and we have sound going. And what your level of jealousy is, and if it shifted. I'm curious to know if people's level of jealousy shifted becoming polyamorous or open versus what they might have been before doing that.
Yeah,
so for me, the situation you were talking about was pretty well in the beginning. And so when we were talking about inviting someone into the bedroom, we literally did invite someone into the bedroom.
Well, beyond just thank you for the sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
It wasn't just the bedroom, and it wasn't just the bed. It was, and I think this is the point where we really got you. It was the fact that it got quite late at night and they were kind of visiting, and we said, I asked if, should we allow them to spend the night and sleep over, which was part of my fantasy, and I thought that'd be a great idea, but not everybody loved it.
Yeah, and I think when you broached me with it, I was like, okay, that would be fine. We just had a really nice interaction with this person. We were very new, very new. Like they were like maybe our second
They were the second person we'd
partner.
ever, yeah.
And yeah, we were super new. And I was like, yeah. And then, so we all, after we, had our lovely time together, we went to bed, we squeezed into the bed.
Yeah.
And I think you were in the middle.
Yeah. And I was loving it, right?
And
There was like a big cuddle puddle and we're all together and everybody felt great.
Yeah.
So I thought.
Puddle. And then, at one point, which was pretty early in the falling asleep, I woke up and, and then all of a sudden I was like hit with all the feelings. Like, I created so many stories. And I think that's what happens when we're jealous is that, you create this dialogue. And so I was anxiously pacing your living room. This was in your old apartment where it was, you could see all the lights of the city. And I was pacing around and making up all kinds of things like, look at them sleeping peacefully. And, oh my God, they both got, what they wanted. And here I am suffering. And why can't he know that I'm awake? And you should know if you were I created this whole thing about you not caring about me, you not being worried about my feelings, which was 100% not true.
But you had an unchecked dialogue and you were able to create more and more evidence to support your own position unchecked.
Yeah. And then I would look in the bedroom and you were like, and then I was like, Argh. And so I kept trying to go to sleep. I had a hard time going to sleep. And then that's what it was.
Wow.
But I think in the morning to your, I think, credit. Thank you. I think I'm a little tired from this weekend's fun activities. We did talk about it after she left and said, we talked about how I felt and you were like, okay. And, anyways, we worked through it, but it was interesting. It really surprised me.
So looking back, I wonder if you would still allow for that demonstration or what you might have done to offset some of those feelings at that time. Anything you would do differently now?
Well, I think knowing yourself is important. I think I have a hard time sleeping. So sleeping with a third person in the bed isn't ideal to begin with. Okay. And then if you couple that with any sort of feelings of insecurity, I think I would say it's not a preferred thing for me. Okay. So I don't think we've done it since.
Well, we always say try everything twice. So I wonder if you'd be considering trying it again.
Well, it would have to be a bigger bed.
Bigger bed, okay.
Yeah, queen size bed, not good for 3 people. Some people who have polycules and stuff like that probably have other arrangements that make it work for them. I would be open to different types of arrangements where, like if we were visiting friends, for example, we have some friends and you slept with the one person and I slept with the other. I think that would be fine.
So 3 in a bed might not cut it for you, or not a queen size bed.
I don't know, not in a queen size bed, maybe the king size bed. We'd have to talk about it. So this is something we would talk about.
Yeah, we could talk about it.
Anyway, yeah. So we'd love to hear what you guys think. If you had situations like this where you felt really jealous at the beginning or how that's shifted for you, etc. So, but we didn't even talk about the definition of jealousy. So maybe we should do that.
That's a good point. So what do we mean by jealousy when we say jealousy?
Well, do you want to do it or shall I?
No, go ahead. So I'll make sure you hit all the marks.
Okay. So jealousy is sort of like an umbrella term. I think it's a catchphrase, a catch-all for like a group of feelings that you might feel, emotions when you, wide range of emotions you might feel when in a relationship. We're talking jealousy in a relationship where your partner might be making connections, either emotionally, sexually with others, where we feel like we threatened in some way, left out, anxious, or that sort of thing. Yeah. Did I cover everything?
I think so. Yeah. But it's interesting that we do say that jealousy is an umbrella term for many of the emotions that we might be feeling. But in normal speech, we just simply say, I'm feeling jealous. But then we start to unpack it. And well, what is it that I'm actually feeling?
Well, and I think that's the key thing. So people say, like, oh, I'm just jealous. But it's like, what is it really that you're feeling? It's like anything, right? It's like, what's really behind that? So
and I think it's good that we might ask ourselves what's behind it, because then we can start to unpack it and figure out what is at play, and we could address those things so we come to a different understanding, a different relationship with it. We might at the end still feel some degree of jealousy, but it won't be as biting, as hurtful, as terrible as the initial part of it when we simply just have it, it's uncomfortable, and then we turn from it and just say, I just feel jealous and that's it. And we stop exploring. We want to remain curious about it and figure out what's at play, and then how could we be any other way.
Well, we're talking about jealousy today because we're actually talking a lot about jealousy this afternoon
Mhm.
as part of our module on jealousy in poly newbies.
We are.
But one of the things that we're going to show today, we're not going to go into details. I really like this diagram that we put together about jealousy. It's like, what is the circumstance, the situation, the scenario? Am I feeling jealous? So no, obviously you're feeling good, or you're denying or avoiding. So that's the thing. If you are, there are things that you might internalize or you might externalize those things. So you may turn into yourself and deal with it on your own, either with negative responses or with positive responses, or you may externalize it. So you may share it, communicate, you may find solutions, or again, you may have negative reactions, which we talked about a bit before.
Yeah, some people, compersion was on there, and some people, I think, have this feeling that if they feel jealousy, they couldn't feel compersion, or if they feel compersion, they wouldn't feel jealousy. And I don't know that the two are mutually exclusive. I don't know that it's binary in that way, that it's either or. That you could feel at times some jealousy and feel some compersion. We can have conflicting feelings at the same time.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the other thing is, like, what I would consider to be a myth out there in polyamory is that in order to be successful or good at polyamory, that you have to have full compersion, like feel good, the joy for your partner's joy all the time. And I think that's really setting yourself up for, maybe disappointment, maybe failure.
Well, but that would be a disservice to ourselves. That's saying that I can't have my feelings. I can't feel those things.
Yeah. And I think you don't have to have full compersion. I don't feel compersion all the time. I get twinges of jealousy at times, and I think it's okay.
Maybe compersion is almost like the orgasm of feelings, that you might not always get it. You might not always feel it, but it's nice when it happens.
I should write that down. Compersion, the orgasm of feelings. It's going to go in our little picture book that we're developing of definitions. Oh, so you should let us know in the chat what you think about us doing like a little picture book. We've been developing these little stick figures for our course, and I really love them, and I think they would make a great little picture book that you could leave out and share with friends who don't know anything about non-monogamy.
Oh yeah, introducing your parents to it.
Yes, exactly. So let's go back to jealousy. So it can be an expression. It's a complex term of a variety of emotions. So some of the things that it can be expression of is insecurity. So that seems obvious, but what are some things that we can be insecure about?
Well, we might do the compare and despair kind of thing and feel as though we're not good enough. And that might create a feeling of insecurity, right? I might imagine that you think this other person is so fantastic, or maybe they are, but then that by comparison, I'm feeling less than, and it makes me feel insecure. So I'm afraid that you're going to go out and get, the deliverance of all of these wonderful things from these other people, and then just throw me by the wayside, that I will be not so fantastic.
Yeah. So insecurity, you can be insecure about that. You can be compare and despair, I think, is its own category, but like you can be insecure about your body. You can be insecure about your relationship and how stable it is, I think. And you can just be really insecure about yourself.
Yeah. And then with that are a lot of the fears that come with that, right? Your fear of rejection.
Yep. Abandonment. So will they only care about their other partner? Will they leave me? And some of this can be triggered by childhood issues as well. If you had any sort of abandonment by parents or siblings, or even in other relationships.
Yeah, well, which is why we do want to often look at the attachment styles, right? And find out, ideally we're securely attached, but if we're not, if we are any other way, then what is at play, and how did that past inform me? And then how am I bringing that forward into my current and future relationships?
Exactly. So you may also fear the unknown. So I think you mentioned what if someone's better than me? What if I can't adapt to this style of living? Like, what if my partner really wants that? And I'm afraid of what might be to come if I don't adapt to it. That could be a thing. So,
that would be very scary, right? Because then you have the idea, well, if I don't participate in this way of being, are they going to still find me attractive or satisfying? So am I kind of participating in something just out of the fear of that kind of loss?
Yeah. And I think that happens to a lot of people. Like a lot of times when people reach out to talk to us, part of that is like, I really must get better at this. I need to get over this, or I'm going to lose my partner.
Right.
So, that's some of the unknown or the abandonment. Or the worst thing can happen. So that might be what you fear. Like, I'm going to be completely left, I'm going to be left behind, and, everyone's going to carry on, and I'm going to be alone, The other part of fear might be FOMO, so fear of missing out. So
Yes.
sometimes it's like, I'm not really jealous of you maybe being with someone or my partner's being with someone. It's more like, I want to do that thing. You know, like sometimes I think what happens too when people open a relationship, they see their partner planning dates with other people, and they're like, oh, you know, why can't we have dates? Like, why can't we have dates like that? I want to go to this arty event about sex, you know, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But then I guess it kind of raises the question, which is often brought up, is that envy or is that jealousy? So is FOMO your fear of missing out, that you were wishing that you were also part of that, or you wish that they wouldn't do that with them? And
Yeah, it could be envy. I'd say envy a little bit different maybe than jealousy. Yeah. The one we missed was uncertainty. So we said insecurity, but uncertainty is something that definitely plays in, might be underlying feelings of jealousy. So I guess that's sort of like, you don't know what's going to happen. You're worried about everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that happens when,
well,
especially if you're new to open relating, if it's a new thing and you're shifting a relationship into this new ground that you may not have experienced before. Like, oh, I have 20 years being married or with this partner. What's going to happen when we open the relationship? And I think for some people, it stops them from opening.
When you say fear of everything, yeah. And I mean, who knows where it's going to stop, right? They might start by having these thoughts or feelings for another person, and then it gets demonstrated. And then how is that going to trickle down to our relationship? And, you know, are we suddenly not going to be known to each other, and a whole bunch of things? And yeah, it could really start unraveling. So you think that it's going to touch every aspect of your relationship.
Exactly. So sometimes jealousy can also be an expression of a feeling of unsafety. That might be underneath it. So not being safe. So that could be something like STIs, like, you know, opening yourself up to exposure to things that you may not be exposed to before. It could also be like that your partner's out meeting strangers, and that may feel unsafe. So you may think it's jealousy, but it might really be that you're worried about your partner, you know?
Yeah. Or your own well-being, right? I mean, what happens if they do go out and contract something or catch feelings for somebody, or who knows what?
Yeah, it's like why one of the things we talk about when we talk about dating is like, if you meet people for the first time, is meeting them obviously in a public place and that sort of thing. Letting people know where you're going, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's always a good thing.
For sure.
So part of jealousy might also be a feeling of not being enough, not being good enough.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's so interesting, because really it comes back to this idea that would I feel good enough in other areas as well? So maybe that is, you know, going to already inform you even before you open up your relationship. Do you normally feel secure and is only about this? And if so, then what is your partner? I almost said parent. What is your partner doing to create that, or to help support that and minimize those feelings? And what can you do for your own?
Awesome. You mentioned it earlier, compare and despair, but I like what you put when we were working on our notes for this afternoon's module. You talked about you can compare and despair based on what is seen, so what's sort of actualized, versus what is in the imagination, so what you fantasize. So like if you get into situations, if you're more in the lifestyle side of non-monogamy or swinging, it may be like, oh my God, I'm seeing my partner do this like thing with this other person, and like, oh my God, I don't react like that. Or look at her, she's having a fantastic time. And, you know, she's like coming and like, you know, like, can you tell that feels real for me?
Maybe.
Yeah. So sometimes, you know, I would say if despair is something I sometimes face. But you can also be, I think sometimes worse is the fantasy of it. Like what's going on that I don't know about it. And this whole idea of creating this dialogue and stories about that.
Yeah. And, you know, to that point, it makes me wonder if you are feeling that and I'm having a good time, am I wanting to go in your head to find out where you are? Or am I wanting to minimize your jealous? Am I want to say, oh, don't worry about it, you're fine. Like I want to just keep doing what I'm doing because, you know, I don't want you to be your disruptive feelings. I don't want them to be disrupting what we're doing. So am I going to try and minimize your jealousy, or am I going to try and acknowledge it and then help unpack it?
Yeah,
some people do that.
It's a good point. And I think I've seen we've been in situations where we've been with people and then they were worried about what their partner is. I think we have an agreement, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that if we're really feeling triggered by something and you need support, then at that point you could interrupt somebody in that thing. But I don't like the idea of just saying like, I'm having a hard time and all of a sudden pulling you away from something.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Trying to manage, it's one of the things we talk about the strategy is manage the immediate stress response.
Right.
And then if you cannot, and if it's becoming a situation that's so intolerable, I suppose you could ask for help at that point.
Well, I think you should. If it is really intolerable and you are feeling unsafe or unwell or insecure, like to the point where you're not able to regulate or manage it comfortably, then yes, you should and are always within your rights to hit the stop button. But perhaps you may be able, ideally, to announce it beforehand and say, like, I'm starting to feel a little bit amber, not so much green, getting towards red, and there might be ways. But then also, hopefully, we are with caring, loving partners who might be able to give us eyes on and or somehow come in tune with each other and find out, well, is it okay? And if we aren't so automatically receptive or perceptive that way, then we might also invite it consciously and say, well, let's do a check-in from time to time just to make sure that we are feeling okay while this is happening, which is ideal when we're together, but might not be so easy if we're apart on dates or something. But then some people, they do elect to say, well, let me give you a little check-in call just to let you know I'm okay and find out that you're okay and how's that going as well.
I think it's good. Sometimes you'll check in with me when we're out and say like, I'm cool and that sort of thing. And I like that.
Yeah.
I try not to disrupt you when you're out on things. I think it's, I want you to enjoy the full experience of your experience. Right. So, I think that's something, but I like the idea that you can decide in advance if you want that. You know?
Yeah. You decide in advance, but if you feel that you hadn't made that decision, but are wanting it, I think you're still within your rights to say, hey, I'm feeling this way, because if it's important to me, is it important to you? And we want to be with partners, with mates who are considering how we feel, that it should be important to them.
Yeah. But I think it's a bit of a balance because I don't, like at the first sign of feeling insecure, you're not like calling your partner back to say like, I'm having a hard time, I can't deal with it, you must come home. Well, that's a whole other thing. Yeah,
that's because in a sense what you're saying there is I can't manage my own feelings, I can't regulate these feelings, so you do it for me. In a sense, right? Ideally, we want to be able to self-regulate, and then in a more appropriate time when we can unpack it, we say, okay, like, I felt uncomfortable, this is what was going on, and what can we do about this? How could I feel any other way?
But part of what we'll talk about in the module this afternoon, if you're in Poly Newbies or if you want to join today, is all about like how to do that, how to do those things. So one of the other things that jealousy can be expression of is a feeling of loss of specialness or value. And this happens, I think, more in non-monogamous relationships rather than monogamous ones.
I don't know about that. I've heard a lot of couples over the years say that, they were in this long-term relationship, monogamous relationship, and that suddenly they woke up and found as though they were strangers to each other, that they had drifted and grown apart and they didn't feel so special anymore. So I don't know that it's limited to polyamory or open relating. Monogamous people feel like that quite a bit, unfortunately.
Okay. For sure. But I think, good point. The good point. I think we tend to grow apart from each other. I think that's why for us, I think polyamory is good because we're constantly choosing each other and constantly reinforcing, I think, that specialness and value in our relationship.
Yeah. It's interesting because we tend to don't go on dates together very often or to events together. We could do it separately, but when we do it together, it kind of feels like that's an activity that we do together. So it makes us closer that way.
Yeah. I was going to say something about that. But sometimes in non-monogamy, especially I think when people are opening up, they see their partner with other partners and then they say, I'm not as important. It may trigger those feelings, and that could be what's underneath those feelings of jealousy.
Yeah, for sure. And coupled with that, the other person might be feeling a great level of new relationship energy. They're stimulated by this new situation. And all of a sudden, they are enchanted or infatuated with this person. We haven't seen them be infatuated since they met us.
Yes.
So it's like, wow, like, that could be kind of threatening in some ways and make us feel, well, what about me?
What about me? So that's where I think one of the ones we mentioned was envy, but we talked about that, wanting what another person has, but territoriality and competitiveness. So this is my partner, mine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why are they having this excitement with this other partner? They're mine, or I need to be number one.
Yeah. Makes me think back to the mono model, which really goes out of its way to state that you are my number one.
Yes.
You are the priority of everything else.
Mhm.
And I think, especially relationship anarchists would take exception to that and say, well, no, you should not have priority like that. You are able to prioritize on a moment by moment basis, that
Yeah.
there should not be, you are the one kind
Mhm.
of person.
And each relationship has a value to itself.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? They're all different and unique and
Yeah.
created differently,
For sure.
co-created.
But to say that also at the same time, there's nothing wrong with having hierarchy, right? So a lot of
No.
people do want to have nesting partners or anchor partners or primary partners, whatever you want to call it, and do very much appreciate that feeling of specialness, I guess we'd say,
Mhm.
by prioritizing like that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So it's part of what you might want to set up in your agreements. How do we continue to show value and feel
Right.
special
Mhm.
to each other?
Yeah.
Yeah. So so we talked, those are kind of the general, I'd say, expressions, but
Mhm.
there's some other, things that can come up in terms of jealousy that I thought we would maybe
Yeah.
touch on. So, I mean, if you've been jealous at any point in any relationship, sometimes our jealousy can fuel poor communication and behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And hands up if you've done that. Oh.
Yeah. Do you have any examples that come to mind?
Well, I mean, people will, sometimes people will lash out, for example. So it can be, I think jealousy can be super powerful. And
Sure.
like I said earlier, it can really trigger really strong feelings that maybe are there or have been underlying things. And this moment in time, this situation has prompted them to come out even more fully.
Yeah.
So you're yelling and calling names at your partner and doing things that you wouldn't normally do, because you're feeling such strong feelings.
And if we don't acknowledge those feelings, or we don't get a chance to talk about them and process them, will they find their way out in some other unrelated event? Will we lash out at our kids or our boss or whoever because we have feelings that are not yet fully explored to that? But you had mentioned something that was interesting also. You talked about the benefits of feeling jealousy.
Oh,
which sounds really strange, right?
Benefits.
But it's kind of like I draw a parallel to feelings of anxiety. So we wouldn't want to have too much anxiety, right? It's going to really be disruptive and not be pleasant at all. We can even go into a panic attack. But to remove anxiety completely would be very dangerous. We should feel a little anxiety when we are crossing the street. It alerts us just in case. Well, maybe the jealousy is serving a purpose there too. Are there feelings that are going on here that I should be able to pay attention to, that I should acknowledge? And then by acknowledging them, I can start to unpack them, figure out how they are serving me or not serving me, and where do I go from there?
It's kind of like everything is an opportunity to learn sort of situation. What am I learning from this situation? But I think sometimes jealousy, people are like, oh, I'm just jealous and I'm never going to get over it and never going to be, my partner and I never work this out. But it could be an early warning or an alert system. You may be jealous for a reason. There may be something, like you said, that isn't quite right. It might be within yourself, but it also may be in your relationship. Like maybe your partner is quietly quitting you. Maybe they are doing things that are unsafe or that sort of thing, right? So it's some way of exploring. It can alert you and be a way of exploring
to inform you.
So
But I take exception with what you just said about the idea that I might not ever, or I'll never get over these feelings. And those absolute blanketing statements don't always prove to be absolutely correct, right? So we might feel in the moment that this feeling is so uncomfortable, I'm never going to get over it. I'll always feel this way. But we know from our own experience and working with other people that yes, in fact, there is a possibility of movement.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I wasn't suggesting that that's
but it's a common thing that people
will
say when they're
that.
absolutely.
They'll say, I'm never going to get over this. I'm never going to, I'm never going to succeed in polyamory. I'm never going to be able to, handle the situation. And I think, I like to think about it as like we've all done hard things in our life, right? This is not the only hard thing that you're going to do. I mean, it takes some work, like lots of things. If it's really impacting you or your relationship, it's not like it's just going to go away if you ignore it, which is, why we're talking today about how jealousy is expressed, but we want to talk and how it might show up for you in your relationship. The next critical step is to really understand what's behind it for you, and then taking action towards working through these things.
And not only might it not just go away on its own, very often it will actually snowball and get bigger, and then find disruptive patterns in other areas of life, as you mentioned, right? So let's not just ignore it. Let's be able to kind of come to terms with these difficult feelings being able to tolerate the intolerable, finding ways to right size it, as we say.
Right size your jealousy.
Mhm.
Yes, we did a whole workshop on
We
that
sure
once
did.
before. Well, this was part of it, but the rest of it is part of our module in Poly Newbies. So if you want to learn how to address these feelings for you and yourself in your
Mhm.
relationship, and you're new to polyamory or opening your relationship or just curious about it, we have this jealousy as one of our modules in our
Yeah.
course, which we're live recording. I can't speak today,
You
this
did today.
afternoon.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about how you can address this within yourself and your relationships. We're going to dig deeper into the things we talked about today. We're going to talk about what doesn't work in
Right.
dealing with your jealousy. And then of course, what does work, and we have 5 specific strategies that you can lean into.
Awesome.
So if you haven't signed up for Poly Newbies, then you can still do that. You can watch today's module live or in the recording and then catch up on the other ones. This is module 4 and there's 7 in total.
Cool.
So there's a link in the post that goes with this broadcast, and we'll drop it in the comments too. Yay.
Yay.
Yay for jealousy.
Awesome.
No. Yay for working through your jealousy.
Yeah, yay for being willing to show up and look at the things that might be difficult, right? Because it's easy to fantasize about all the sex and wonderful times you're going to have, and you might well have those. But it's also good to be able to acknowledge some of the things that might come with that, and then finding ways to temper that, so we are not, overrun by them.
Exactly. I feel pretty proud at how I've grown in terms of how
Yeah,
I
you
feel
should.
and my jealousy and that sort of thing.
Yeah, you should be proud. I feel proud too.
Okay. Awesome. So have a great rest of your morning, and we'll see you either this afternoon or next week for
Yeah.
Mondays with Tara and André.
Thank you.
Thanks
Bye.
for watching. Bye.